Today we are going to talk about the shadow of a series that has long since ended, but still walks quietly through the corridors of modern supernatural television. A show that began as a quirky MTV experiment in 2011, based loosely on a lighthearted 1985 movie about a werewolf playing basketball, but transformed into something darker, sharper, and far more captivating. I'm talking about Teen Wolf. But before we dive deeper, let me set the stage the way we always do. Welcome to TV Series. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more videos. Now buckle up, because this story isn't just about one show, it's about how Teen Wolf became a ripple effect across modern TV. When Teen Wolf first came out, many people underestimated it. I mean, MTV making a supernatural teen drama? It sounded like a setup for cheap effects and shallow plots. But instead, the show became a hidden monster of its own, drawing fans into its clever mix of horror, humor, friendship, betrayal, and mythological storytelling. Think about it. One moment you're laughing at Styles Stilinski's awkward jokes, and the next, you're holding your breath as the Oni demons surround him in the darkness. That balance, scary but also funny, light but also deadly, became something many shows after Teen Wolf tried to capture. Shows like The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina and Legacies owe a piece of their DNA to Teen Wolf. Why? Because Teen Wolf taught TV that supernatural stories don't have to just be scary. They can be layered, emotional, and rooted in human connection. Remember how Teen Wolf built its world. It didn't just drop a vampire or werewolf and call it a day. It wove entire mythologies: Celtic druids, Japanese kitsune, Aztec demons, Norse references. It was like a buffet of folklore, all served with a dark MTV glow. Other shows saw that and thought, we can do this too. Why just stick to vampires when you can bring in witches, demons, and gods? But here's where it gets interesting. Teen Wolf didn't just change the kinds of creatures on screen, it changed how shows treated their characters. Before Teen Wolf, supernatural TV often revolved around a single hero, think Buffy in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or one central love triangle, The Vampire Diaries. But Teen Wolf gave us a pack. It told us survival isn't about one chosen one, it's about family, loyalty, and the chaos of trying to protect everyone. Other series picked up that pack mentality. Shadowhunters, for example, leaned heavily on the group is stronger than the individual theme. Even Riverdale, while not supernatural in its earliest seasons, built storylines around tight-knit friendships tackling impossible odds, just like Scott, Styles, and Lydia did in Beacon Hills. Now, let's talk about tone. Teen Wolf wasn't afraid to be, well, creepy. There are scenes, like the Najitsun whispering through Styles' mouth, that still send shivers down fan spines. But it also wasn't afraid to be sarcastic and funny. That blend created suspense. You never knew if the next moment would make you laugh or scream. And isn't that what keeps an audience glued to the screen? Imagine you're sitting in a dark room, heart racing, watching a shadow crawl across the wall. Suddenly, Styles cracks a joke about how terrible his timing is. Boom, you laugh, but your body is still tense. That's Teen Wolf's magic. And now, you'll notice many supernatural shows try to replicate this rhythm of fear and fun. For instance, Wednesday on Netflix uses the exact same trick. Eerie scenes in Nevermore Academy followed by biting sarcasm from Wednesday Addams. It feels familiar, right? Like echoes of Styles' banter in Beacon Hills. But here's the question. Did Teen Wolf make other shows better, or did it just change the formula? Well, look at the originals. It already existed in the Vampire Diaries universe, but once Teen Wolf proved audiences could handle darker mythologies and bloodier storylines, the originals leaned heavier into violence and gothic atmosphere. Similarly, Legacies sprinkled more mythologies into its world, something Teen Wolf pioneered. Even shows outside the supernatural space took notes. 13 Reasons Why doesn't have werewolves, but it took that dark, moody tone mixed with teenage angst, something Teen Wolf had perfected, and gave it a real-world twist. And let's not forget the actors. Dylan O'Brien's breakout as Styles influenced casting decisions in later shows. Producers started looking for the funny but secretly complex sidekick archetype, a character who could carry comic relief and tragedy in the same breath. We've seen echoes of that in Stranger Things' Dustin or even Umbrella Academy's Klaus. Another influence: representation. Teen Wolf was one of the earlier teen dramas to put LGBTQ+ characters in significant roles without making their storylines solely about being queer. Danny Mahealani wasn't just the gay character. He was part of the lacrosse team, the tech-savvy helper, and woven into the story. This paved the way for shows like The Magicians or Sex Education, where characters' sexualities are part of them but not their entire identity. Still, the scariest part of Teen Wolf's influence might be how it shaped fan culture. Let's be honest, fandom for Teen Wolf was wild. Fanfiction exploded, conventions filled with screaming fans, and memes spread like wildfire. This intense online fandom became a model for how networks marketed supernatural shows. Just look at how Shadowhunters or Stranger Things leaned into fan-created content and conventions. They learned from the Beacon Hills craze that fandoms weren't just a bonus, they were an engine that kept shows alive. But here's where I want to pull you in with a question. Have you noticed how many recent shows feel like they're chasing that Teen Wolf energy but never fully capture it? It's like when you copy someone's homework, you might get the answers, but you miss the understanding behind it. That's the curse and gift of Teen Wolf. It gave us a blueprint, but it also left a shadow so big that other shows struggle not to get lost in it. So, what's the funniest example of influence? Remember how Teen Wolf loved slow-motion lacrosse scenes? It became so iconic that other shows started slipping in sports moments with dramatic editing, like basketball in All-American. The difference? Teen Wolf made lacrosse feel like a battle for life and death. Everyone else just made it look, well, like sports. And the scariest influence? The idea of the darker season. Many series now believe they must take a light, quirky start and drag it into the shadows by season 2 or 3. Riverdale, for example, went from high school drama to serial killers and cults. Sound familiar? Beacon Hills did it first. In the end, Teen Wolf's influence is everywhere. From the way shows build friendships, to how they weave mythologies, to how they play with tone. It didn't just change supernatural television. It reminded TV that stories about monsters are always really stories about being human. About surviving the night with the people you love at your side. And maybe that's the real legacy of Teen Wolf. It told us that the scariest monsters weren't always the ones in the woods, they were the fears inside us. And the funniest moments? They were the jokes we cracked in the middle of the darkness, trying to keep the shadows at bay. Okay, that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments section below. Please like, share and subscribe for more.